Hey everyone, welcome to Average Joe Preparedness. My name's Rick, and I'm an average Joe. If you've been around a while, hopefully you picked up, I don't just make videos for like SNGs. You know what I'm saying? To just have a video come out every once in a while or scheduled once a week or whatever. I usually do videos because this is my journey and I do videos on what I'm doing for preparedness. Yes? And there's a lot of times I'm not doing anything new. And I mean, I could make a video, but I doubt you guys want to see me doing the same things that I'm doing all the time. Like I'm getting ready to bring my vacuums in here and break them down. If you guys have been around for a while, I take my vacuums down, I refurbish them, I change out the filters and the such, and because I want them to last, because I don't want it to be dependent on things, and I want to save money. And you guys have seen the videos if you've been around for a while. But I don't want to keep making the same things over and over again. Like, oh, look, I'm taking my vacuums down again. So I try to do videos when I show you basically something new. Now, if you guys want to see like my daily or weekly thing over and over again, I mean, that's up to you. But again, there's usually a reason. Weather changes, things I do for weather changes. And by the way, winter videos are coming. Uh, and like the latest thing, I'm not making a video right now. I got a new mess kit. Yay. I know it's silly, but anyways, I have a new mess kit. And I don't really do unboxing videos like, oh, look at this. I took it out of the box. It looks awesome. No, what I'm going to do is I'm using it and I'm going to use it for a long period of time. And don't judge me, but I'm going to see if I can break it, and I'm going to see how well it works. And then I'll be like, oh, and once I use it to replace my old mess kit, and I'll explain why. If I use it, if I go, okay, guess what? I'm changing my old mess kit, which I've used for years, for this new mess kit, then I'll be like, oh, look, I'm changing it out. Yes, but not a whole video on that. And you guys know I don't read the news, you know what I'm saying? I do the daily doom and gloom. That's other channels. But what I did is I looked back in the comments, and I do like to do that. If people like comments and they ask questions, then I don't mind, besides answering them in the comment section. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll try to make a video about that. So there's a few, someone said something about they wanted to see how my garden was set up. Well, my garden's basically done. And I was like, well, next year. And I'm like, wow, that's kind of rude, Rick, to say that. Well, you can look at it next year. And I've shown it before. And so I'm like, well, I'm going to go outside. There's other reasons too. We got warm weather. If you guys can tell how I'm dressed, look at this. Yes? No jacket. So we got a warm spell. It's not going to last long. So I figured I'd take advantage of it. But I figured, what the heck? Somebody asked. It's the least I can do is go out and show you how my setup is empty almost. I mean, there's a couple things we can go over, but yeah, that's one reason we're going to be going outside. And then I figured while we're out there, there was a thing about water catchment, so I can show my water catchment system again. I've shown it before. You're probably not going to get video because it wasn't a whole video about water catchment, I don't think. I just plugged stuff in. And then maybe if we're feeling crazy, I can show you guys how I set up my composting for next year. And again, I've done composting, but it's been hodgepodge. It's never been like a video on it. And this video won't be either. So yeah, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to grab my Ranger Rick hat and we're going to go outside and see some stuff. Yes? Yes. Okay, normally I just take my camera and I get behind it and I do my little finger around the outside and point at stuff. I'm going to try something new. Yes? So this is one of my the old garden bed. If you've been around, you know what I'm talking about. This is half of it I'm going to show you. I'll show you the other half in a second. But this is actually, and I want to talk to you guys about microenvironments, which I've talked about before. I plant stuff here, I plant stuff there. You just can't tell what's going to grow. This is actually under an overhanging. And you can see there's a wall here. There's a fence. It's approximately 15 feet that way. So, and this only gets direct sunlight in the morning. And then it gets reflective off the fence. And you guys picking up what I'm laying down? So this is the first one I did just to see if I was actually going to start growing stuff and putting the other beds up. But this is the beginning. And on this half, you can see, this is where I have my asparagus. This is one of my asparagus plants. Now, if you look and see, he's not doing so good. So he should be dead already, but he's not. So I let him grow until this thing completely and absolutely dies. And you can see the other one. We'll talk about him in a second. So, and then I've decided this year, these are these tomato cages. I use these because in the beginning of the season and at the end of the season, they fern is what I call it, which is what this guy's doing, what this guy tried to do. And that's supposedly when the root system's getting bigger. So what I'm doing is I'm actually leaving these in now. I'm not taking them out anymore. And I'm gonna let it grow around them, because what I've been doing is pulling them out and then sticking them back in and probably doing some damage to the root systems. Now, if anybody out there grows asparagus and you're like, yeah, Rick, you've been messing it up, you can let me know. I got no problem with that. Pretty much everything I do is just hit or miss and learn. Yes? Yes. So we're gonna find out how that works next year. And then finally, can you guys see it? Almost every single one of my beds, I've left one of these in. You guys know what those are? Those little copper antennas? Now, I'm not saying they're right or wrong, good or bad, don't care. I got them, I'm sticking them in, and they're just gonna be there forever. Yes, I'm just gonna use them until I lose them. We'll see what happens. All right, let's take a look at the second half of this bed. Okay, so in this bed, you can see I have my other asparagus plant. Now this one's doing better than that one over there. It's still alive. I can't believe it's still alive. So, and again, tomato cage, I'm not pulling them out anymore. I don't want to damage the root system. Hopefully it'll work. I don't know. We'll find out. So, and then I plant over there and here. I usually plant things like lettuce and spinach predominantly, because it's kind of covered. They're sensitive to the sun. They're sensitive to heat. So it kind of works out for me. Yes. And I also, next year, when spring comes, this is where I'll be planting the little starters. Not actually in there, but I'll be putting the starter things here on the bed, because I can also, I don't know if you guys can see it, so I'll cover it up. Remember, up top side, it's covered so the frost doesn't settle on it. And this is where I'm going to start my plants off in the spring. And while we're here, this area right here is my garlic. This is my garlic bed. Now you see there's only 2 little plants, and I should pull those out if I want them, but I didn't need them, so I just leave them. And I have other ones you're supposed to plant in the fall and then harvest in the fall. Well, I didn't know that. So I have other ones planted during different times to see what was going to happen. And so basically throughout the year, I have garlic coming up. And I'm hoping after a few years, this bed, garlic bed, will just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. That's what I'm hopeful for. Yes? And then this is my chives. Been here for years. Onion chives, by the way. So been here for years, and yeah, hopefully it'll just keep growing. Yes? Yes. Okay, what we have here is I call it my middle bed, or my center bed. And this one's in between. The beds we were just discussing are right over there. And again, that's the wall of the house. And then I don't know if you can see it back over here. You see the other beds that I have, and there's a fence. And it's about halfway covered directly. So it's kind of middle of the road. Yes? I don't know if you guys can see it. See this pole sticking up next to me? It's a sunflower plant. There's another one over there. Maybe I'll let you guys take a look at those. Those are the 2 that I have left that the necks haven't snapped on them. So I'm hoping I'm still getting sunflower seed development. We'll have to wait and see. I've already got a set of the last flower that I'd already pulled. I've already got the seeds in the house, and I'll be brine soaking them tonight, and I'll be roasting them tomorrow. The last ones I did, I gave some to the neighbors. They thought they were pretty good. So first season of sunflower seeds, everybody likes my sunflower seeds, so it makes me happy. Yes? Yes. Now, a lot of the time, I'll just change what I plant. But predominantly, this last year, if you guys go back, you can see the videos. This last year, there was a lot of lettuce, there was a lot of tomatoes. There was a lot of spinach, and there was a lot of carrots in this bed. Yes? So it's kind of middle of the road, and I don't actually know, and I'll do another video once I actually plant things in the spring, what I'm going to plant in different areas. Now, usually I do spinach and lettuce here because I know it grows, and I like to have that throughout the year, so I plant it at different times, so that some I'm harvesting early, some I'm harvesting in the middle, and some I'm harvesting at the end. And then carrots, I just throw carrots in, and then those are end of season harvest. You know, there's not a lot of pulling during the year because of the growing zone that I'm in. Yes? Yes. Okay, so now we're getting up against a fence. Yes? And I don't know if you guys can tell the last bed I showed you, and these beds already here. I built these. Yes, they don't look like the first one. So I built all these beds that I'm going to show you along this fence. And you guys, the sun, there's nothing I can do about it. Sorry about that. But when it comes to this bed, let me see, right there at the end, if you guys can see fence, and you can see fence, and the wall is actually right here. So it's a very small area. It doesn't get direct sunlight in the morning. It gets at midday, and then that's it. And it gets reflective sunlight. Once again, you got to talk about microenvironments when it comes to growing. Let me see, this was all potatoes on this side, and they did really well. Oh, no, no, not this year. That was 2 years ago. Oh my gosh, I'm getting confused. This was all carrots, excuse me, a huge thing of carrots, and then lettuce and spinach. But I got a huge carrot harvest out of this bed right here. Now that side, I had some lettuce and I had some spinach also, but the end of it, I don't know if you guys can see, the end of it is always reserved for the same thing, and that is cucumbers. But cucumbers, they grow out, and I bring them back along here, or now I bring them out and I bring them up trellises that I put back there in the corner. Yes, cucumber patch, that's what I do. Now the next two beds, that's this one and that one that's off camera, I usually try to grow the bigger things. And what I mean by that are like the peppers and tomatoes, and I've tried basil, and I can usually get the plants to grow. The problem is I'm not starting them off soon enough. So I usually get little or no fruits at the end, or veggies, whatever the hell you want to call them. So I usually don't get too much. Now next year I'm going to try to start them a little earlier, and we'll see what happens. Now while we're here, I'm going to point out a couple things. If you guys see that terracotta pot, I told you how I'm using that. I'm practicing, or testing it, I should say, where I fill it up with water and I let it try to water or keep the soil moist during the year because it gets hot here. So I'm testing that out. It seemed to work, but I usually give it a couple years before I'm actually going to say anything. Yes? Yes. And another thing I'd like to point out is if you guys can see how much distance there is from the top down to where the top of the soil is. Can you guys see this right here? And I don't know if you're going to notice in all this video on all the beds is when I start the season, I fill these up. And then by the end of the season, you can see how far it's dropped. I don't use dirt in my raised garden beds. It's all, now don't get me wrong, I'm sure there's like dirt getting in there, you know, dust, and the stuff I put in there's got dirt, and eventually it's going to stack up over the years. But I use, it's all like wood, you know, for lack of a better term. I've also started using coconut husks because it's more readily available and it's more natural and it doesn't hurt the environment and it doesn't disturb, like peat moss. It's non-renewable, but coconut husks are renewable. Yes, I'm trying everything I can, guys. Okay, now this is the last bed along the fence over here. I hope you guys can see this with the sun being the way it is, but this right here should be an excellent example of how far down this is actually settled since the beginning of the season, the beginning of this year. So it breaks down, it gets smaller and smaller. I don't know if you guys can see that, smaller and smaller and smaller. It's like Mother Nature's way of doing business, yes? So in the spring, I'll put a lot more material in here, which again is like compost. It's not dirt. I don't put a lot of dirt in my raised garden beds. Yes? Yes. All right, so let's take a break from the gardens and the sun, and we're going to talk about water catchment systems. Now, there was a question somebody wanted to see, or they were talking about me getting one, or wanting to know if I had one, and so I do. So I have two on this side of the house. I have one on the other side of the house. I don't really need to show you. They're basically the same, but this isn't how I started. I started with one. I don't know if you guys can see. Can you guys see this right here? My downspout and how it goes right there on top of that rain barrel. I don't know if I'm pointing in the right direction, guys. But that's not what I started with. I eventually built up to it. I started with one, and now you can see they're attached, and so it builds the pressure up, and that's not what I started with either. So I've mentioned before, start with something, and you guys can work yourselves up to something else. Something that's nicer. Like this is way nicer than what I started with. Yes? Yes. But by the way, I have catchment systems. I'm going to take this opportunity to remind you guys again, before you do anything like this in this day and age, is check with the law, because you got to check with the state, you got to check with your county, you got to check with your city, and make sure that you can, one, catch water. We won't talk about that. And number two, how much water you can actually catch. And I highly recommend that you stay within the law, which I am. Now, I guess if things go cray-cray, then no one's going to pay attention. But right now, yes, I am compliant. Okay, back in the sun. Now, we're on the other side of my yard. And I've told the story before, but I found this by accident. Apparently, I don't know if you guys can see the little rubber strip right there. It's like a little barrier wall. All this was overgrown when I got here. and I don't know what the previous owner was doing along this strip, and it runs all the way down. I'll show you the rest of it. But I unburied it, and I started using it because my sprinklers technically aren't set up to water this. And I'm like, well, I mean, my sprinklers are kind of sticking out, so I don't want to move grass there and run over my sprinkler heads. This is here anyways. What can I do with it? So it comes out about 18 inches, give or take, and it runs a bit. And I slowly reclaimed it, dug it out and started planting things. And then I'm also slowly reclaiming it because the soil was terrible. When we get to the other end, I'll show you how bad the soil was. So, and again, it's about microenvironments. Yes? Yes. Now, obviously, it's up against a fence. This area doesn't get evening or late afternoon to evening sun. It gets reflective sun. The house is there. There's windows. It's all kinds of stuff, guys. The wind gets blocked when it's coming from certain directions. And there's a limited growing space. You guys picking up what I'm laying down? And there's also like a limiting water because my sprinklers don't really hit this as good as it should. But I practice doing it because I want to take advantage of all the space that I possibly can, and I usually work on the hardest spaces. I mean, if something bad came, I could plow up my grass out here that I've been working on, and the soil and the sprinklers headed. You get what I'm saying, going from a micro to a macro. But I practice in like the hard spaces to see if I can get things to happen, because then once I go easy, it should be easy. Yes? Yes. Okay, so we've moved 1.5 of these fence lengths down. I usually have them divided by these. I don't know if you could tell from here to here to there to there. Yes, but I wanted to show you this split here for an important reason. First off, these are my onions. This is my onion patch. And if you guys haven't seen it, this onion patch has been growing. It's between here, and the next fence, right? You'll see it right there. But I wanted to show it to you for a few reasons. Number one is I planted onions in here, and basically I've let them go for years. And they self-plant. And I want to see if I can make this happen. If you guys don't know what an onion does, if you just let it go, this is what an onion does, guys. You see what I'm saying? It comes up with this really cool flower, and then this is where you get the seeds. And I'm doing this live. Oh, excellent. There's still some there. If you guys can see those black dots right there? Yeah. Onion seeds. Now, some of these plants, like this one, some of these bulbs, whatever you want to call them, these have been here for years. And then these smaller ones that you can see have been here for like maybe a year or two. They're growing, and it's like a natural seeding process. The wind blows and those little seeds just fall off of this. Or sometimes I'll hit them. I'll be like coming up and going, boom, and they'll go. I've also collected seeds off of that. I have them in my shed. And in the spring next year, where it may be thin, and I'm gonna have to thin these out, where it may be thin, I'll just plant more seeds by hand and not the natural way, if that makes sense. And then I have to come out here and I have to thin these out because they get in patches. Gravity forces these to like fall into one place usually. And so I thin it out, but man, the onions that have been growing for years and years, they're so powerful, they're so flavorful. You don't need a lot. It's awesome. Yes? Yes. A couple more things I wanted to show you. I don't know if you, now this is where my onions stop, right here and back over there. But the seeds don't know that. So I don't know if you guys can see it. Can you guys see these green? Does it go off camera right over here? If you guys can zoom in, all of this, which looks like it might be grass, but if you see, it's round. It's not flat. Those are all onions. And so if I get a chance, what I'll do is I'll transplant those. I'll dig those up. I don't know if they're going to survive or not. We'll see. I'll dig those up and I'll end up putting them back over here where places are thin. Yes? Yes. And, besides the onions that have been growing for years, like this guy, that are just really flavorful, it's the offspring. They've been growing here over and over and over again. They've adapted to it. And even those are really flavorful too. You guys with me on that one? They've been growing in the same place for years. Okay, so now I've moved all the way down to the fence to the end. And right here, this is important to notice, there is a pine tree. And if you've ever tried growing around a pine tree, or any tree, but specifically pine trees, you're gonna find you are not gonna be successful. But what I brought you down here for is take a look at this soil. Can you guys see that? This is poo. That's what this is. I don't mean that literally. I mean, this is just sandy. And so what it does is it takes time. Again, I could probably dig all this out and put down this stuff, but that's not the hard way of doing things. And I'm trying things the hard way to know that I can do it. You with me? Sure, I could shovel it up, and then just put great stuff down, but I'm not learning anything. So basically I started at the top and I worked my way down. And so I'm constantly trying to revitalize the soil by introducing natural stuff and getting it into the soil, and who knows, we'll see how long it takes. All right, guys, I don't know how well you can see this in the shadows, but we're in the backyard and we're under the trees, and growing stuff under the trees is a pain, yes? But this is where I do experiments. These are the buckets that I try growing potatoes in. If you guys can see, again, I don't know how well you guys can see, this potato actually started growing towards the end of the season. And I haven't dug them out yet. There's probably nothing there, but I'll find out when I empty the buckets. But life has a way sometimes. It might not be when and where you want it to, but life sometimes have a way. And then again, I don't know if you guys can see these little bitty hay bales right here? What those are, you guys know the decorative hay bales that are used for like Halloween? Yeah. Well, those are from like a few years ago. And I decided to throw them out here and see what I could do with them and see what nature was going to do with them. Because if I'm not mistaken, they spray down their straw bales. They spray the straw bales down so they don't mold, so it's covered in poisons and nasty stuff. And I wanted to see how long it would take nature to break that down. And by break it down, I don't mean it's actually falling apart. I mean, I try planting stuff inside the bales each year, and I'll continue. Nothing's growing so far. So I'm going to keep doing it each year and see how long it takes for those nasty sprayed down hay bales to where they can actually support life again. I know it's weird, but it's just what I do, guys. Okay, now this area right here is what the lovely lady in my life calls the graveyard. Number one, I don't know if you guys can see this little fence. I mean, I have no idea what you guys are going to be able to see with the shadows and the sun. You guys see this teeny little fence that goes all the way around it, like it's a little graveyard? And the other thing is basically everything I plant there dies. I mean, sometimes it comes up, it doesn't do very good. And if I'm going to point something out, if you guys can see it, you see this plant right here? I'm messing with my finger. Do you know what that is? It's a freaking potato. So I threw potato plants. There's another one back there. I threw potatoes down here. Nothing happened. And towards the end of the season, when we're done, I get these little bitty plants. Now I'm sure there's nothing there. I'm just going to leave them. It doesn't matter. But each year, this is between two trees, and this soil back here is just terrible. So in this area right here, each year, I kind of tool it up a little bit. I put down some compost, some nutrient rich materials to try to bring it back to life. We're going to see how long it takes. Yes? Yes. Okay, more experiments. So the daughter-in-law has a horse, and she got a bunch of hay. And these two bales, they had some mold. And so she didn't want to feed it to a horse. She didn't want to put it in with all the other hay bales so it didn't spread. So I got them, and I got two hay bales, and they've been sitting back here for this year. So in the spring, next year, I'm actually going to plant in these. Now, these weren't sprayed like those other ones that you get from decorative stores or whatever. These are actual ones. And I'm going to see they'll act hopefully like a raised garden bed, and I'll plant stuff on the top and see how it works. Once again, I'm just experimenting to see what I can grow, where I can grow, what it takes to do it, how to do it, blah, blah, blah. Yes? Yes. Okay, now this is one of two of my cold compost bins. And basically, I just use this fencing right here, a little square, and I throw in leaves and grass. More leaves than grass, because carbon versus nitrogen, if that makes sense. So it's supposed to be like 75% brown and 25% green, somewhere in there. So, and I don't know if you guys can actually see it. I've got layers of leaves and grass and leaves and grass. And I have one of those machines that sucks up the leaves and it kind of shreds them a little bit, if you can see the texture of the leaves back there, to try to help it. But basically, this is cold compost. I don't really flip it. I don't really keep it wet. I don't want it. It's just a natural breakdown. And then I'll take this and I'll go put it into my hot compost. Yes? Let's go take a check at that. Okay, so behind my shed, that's why I'm out of the sun, I have three of these spinner compost bins. These are divided into two. And these are hot compost. So I add the water to it. I can control how much air it gets, and I have a moisture detector, so that way I can see how the moisture level is. And this is where I make actual compost. So I take the stuff out of the cold compost bins and I put it in here, and this accelerates it. Yes, why? I don't have to. I can go buy compost, bags of it, but I want to figure out how to do it just in case. And besides, every little bit I make, something I don't have to go buy. It's leaves that I don't have to put into a landfill. It's not going to, yep, practicing being a hippie. Okay, one last thing to show you before we go back inside. This is the future for me. Raised garden beds, big ones. Cost a little bit, but it's going to take years for me to fill these things up. Yes, because I'm going to do it naturally, and I think I mentioned before, I'm doing that whole back to Eden thing where I'm going to fill it up with sticks and twigs and logs and all kinds of stuff, and we'll see how it goes. Yes? Yes. Okay, I don't know what you guys are going to be able to see with that. How's my hair? I don't know what you guys are actually going to be able to see. A little trip outside with the sun and whatever. So hopefully you guys can see it. I won't know until I go and edit this video and upload it. So we'll wait and see, guys. And hopefully you guys have patience, or you guys understand what I'm getting at when I'm showing you guys that stuff. We'll go over a couple more things and then we'll call it a day. How's that sound? Yes? Yes. Okay, let's touch on the rain catching system. Now, someone made a comment that they had worked with it before and that they were told that it's non-potable. Okay, first off, I'm not an expert on anything. This is not advice. This is just my opinion, and it's for entertainment purposes only, blah, 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 disclaimer, yes? So that water is non-potable. That means you can't drink it. And I've mentioned that before. I did a video where I tested out a life straw, and that's the water I was drinking. And I'm pretty sure I made it clear that that water is not potable. You guys with me? So if you do range catchment, if you decide to do one of these systems, do not drink the water raw. I mean, you could process it, you could filter it, you could boil it, you could do the bleach thing, you could do the little water purification tablets. There's lots of things you can do to it, but please do not drink that water. Bad juju. The next thing is when it comes to using it on plants that you're going to eat. Now, they were told that you do not use caught rain, whatever word you want to use, the proper word, to water edible vegetables and fruits and stuff. Yes? Okay, well, I did a little research on it. I'd done it before because I use this water to water my plants. I do it at the beginning of the season before they turn our secondary water on. It's a long story. And I do it at the end of the season when they turn our secondary water off. Again, it's a long story. And I don't like wasting stuff. There's a reason why I catch that water, and one of it is to water my plants. I water my flowers and stuff too, but I also use it to water my garden. Now, I did a little research before, and once that was brought up, I did a little bit more. Now, I highly recommend everyone do their own research. You are responsible for you. Everything in life has inherent risk, okay? Getting in your car and driving up to the store has inherent risk. Everything does. You have to accept it if you're an adult, the risk you want to take. So there was a question about it. And I found they did a study, to answer the question, they did a big study, I think it was in Australia, about catching the water, and they did it off of different roofs, different kinds of roofs, and using it to see what it did to the plants. So the first thing is, if you're going to use it and you accept the risk, not because I'm telling you to, is you don't actually water the plants, you water the soil. Because once it gets down to the soil, inside the soil is a bunch of microbes and stuff. It's awesome, Mother Nature, and it breaks down poisons. It breaks things down. That's what Mother Nature does. It's doing it 24/7. It's just what Mother Nature does. So if the water goes into the soil can break it down if there's any diseases or stuff in there, and then it hopefully won't get into your plants. It says not to water the plant itself to where it gets on the leaves. But if you are to do that, then, and it's a very common thing, make sure you wash thoroughly anything that you get out of your garden. Well, I hope that goes unsaid. I hope everybody does that anyways, because birds flying by, they do their business. You guys with me? And that's one of the reasons why water that's caught isn't good, because birds are doing their business on your roof. And then the water is picking up bird business. I'm trying to be nice here, guys. I don't know what you guys want me to do. But basically, that happens in nature anyways. Birds are flying by, and they do their business on your food. And they're not the only thing. There's other things out there. There's cats, and I mean, it depends on where you live, but there could be squirrels and field mice and raccoons and squirrels. Did I mention them? There's possums. Who knows? Mother Nature is out there doing its thing. You with me? So anytime you get something, you should always thoroughly wash it. And then if you can, make sure it's the type of vegetables that you can actually cook. You guys with me on that? I hope so. So the whole thing about a catchment system is, besides it catches stuff on the roof like dirt, and plus the asbestos, I guess, and well, depending on what your roof's made out of, is it's a big collection of bird business. Instead of random, them just doing it on your garden, they're doing it on your roof, and then it's all collected into one place, which is that water. Yes? So it's up to you. There's ways of purifying it. They talk about that before you use it on your plants. If you want, you can add bleach to it, let it settle. There's filters. I have one. Actually, maybe I'll show you guys one time, not today, that just, it actually goes right onto a spigot and it'll filter out some things. So there's lots of things you guys can do. Yes? But if you decide to do it, you're taking the risk. Do the research yourself. I'm just letting you know what I do. What I do is I use that water. Yes? Yes, but I also wash my stuff. Okay, for those guys that ask questions about what does my garden look like, there's nothing growing hardly. I mean, my onions and stuff, my stuff that I just leave. And then I showed you a few other things. And again, I'll talk about it. If you're wondering why, I don't know if you guys noticed, but I'm growing in like the worst places. Over here on the side of the house, up that little strip along the fence. I'm trying to do stuff along the back, underneath trees, instead of just growing it right in the middle where it gets lots of sun and I can water it. And if something really bad happens, that's what I'm going to do. Right now I'm doing it here because I call it wasted space. I use dead space because I have grandkids and stuff. I want a yard. And we have big, huge planters out there for flowers and stuff because the lovely lady in my life wants to see flowers. She doesn't want to see carrots and potatoes, and neither do I, really. But dead space or wasted space in the back, on the sides, it's a harder place to grow. But hey, if you can grow it there, you can grow it anywhere. Yes? Okay, and the last thing, we're just going to go down real fast. Whoop! Yep, I don't know if you guys are paying attention, but man, we went grocery shopping for the holidays that are coming up. Everything is so expensive. Yes? Oh my gosh. Even if the world doesn't come to an end, everything is just getting more expensive. Everything is getting tougher. And I hope the best for everybody that's out there. I hope, I'm not going to do it. I promise I'm not going to talk about finances in this video. Okay, I'm going to talk about finances. I hope everybody is doing the best they can in controlling their finances, living below their means, taking control of it, and not letting it control you. You with me? No little financial advice on this video, just a hope that you're paying attention to it and that you can see why. Things are getting very expensive. Yes, and I don't think it's going to get better anytime soon, so I hope the best for you. But we're going to move that up to the holidays are coming, and once again, I hope you have an opportunity to get with friends and family, and even if it's not a feast, even if it's just something small, I hope that you understand it's not the food, it's the company you should enjoy. All right, that's it for this video. With this, I hope this finds you well. I hope you are doing everything you can to be happy and staying positive, and I hope for whatever life brings you that you are being prepared.